My beloveds, I want you to understand something that will change the way you carry yourself through the darkness. Before you ever felt the heat of the fire, before the walls closed in, before you tasted the bitterness of delay or betrayal, God had already worked it out. Yes, before the storm knew your name, peace had already been assigned to your soul. You see, we tend to believe that we are walking into unknowns, that life surprises us and maybe even surprises God. But I came to tell you, there are no surprises in heaven. Nothing about your struggle caught God off guard. Nothing about your tears made him scramble for a plan. Before your trouble got the memo to show up, grace had already arrived. Mercy had already stood in your defense. Favor had already written your name into the solution. There is a divine rhythm to this life, and it moves to the beat of a loving creator who knew the beginning, wrote the middle, and sealed the end. So while you were pacing the floor at 2 a.m., wondering how you'd make it through the next day, heaven had already settled it. While you were calling your friends and clutching your chest and questioning your worth, there was a divine hovering over you saying, "Ooh, child, I've already made a way." But see, we want evidence. We want to see the solution with our own eyes before we let go of the worry. We want to hold faith like a receipt, proof in hand before we rest. But that ain't how faith works. Faith is a knowing that doesn't require seeing. It is peace that doesn't wait for the paperwork to clear. You've got to know in your spirit what hasn't shown up in your reality yet. You've got to believe that even when the floor shakes, the foundation still stands. Somebody listening right now has been carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. You've been trying to solve something that God already answered. You've been running numbers, calling people, exhausting your body and breaking your spirit, when all along the answer was already set in motion. I don't say that to make you feel guilty. I say it so you can put it down. Put down the burden of being your own savior. Lay it down at the feet of the one who saw you coming before the world ever called you by name. Don't you know God had you in mind before time was time? Before your parents knew each other's names? Before they ever dreamed of a child with your smile and your walk and your voice? God had already placed purpose inside your being. That means everything you would ever face had to pass through his knowing. The heartbreak, the illness, the job loss, the betrayal, the waiting, all of it had to come through the hands of a God who said, "What this will not destroy them. I've already placed the escape." Now I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes it feels like life has taken a sharp left and you're hanging on by a thread. But even in those moments, especially in those moments, your steps are still ordered. You are not wandering. You are not lost. You are in process. You are being shaped by a divine hand that does not make mistakes. Let me tell you something. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it's not holy. Just because it's confusing doesn't mean it's not part of the calling. Sometimes God allows us to sit in uncertainty just long enough to remind us that we were never in control in the first place. That job you didn't get, that was protection. That door that closed in your face, that was redirection. That person who walked away, that was preparation. He works it out not only so you can have the victory, but so you will recognize the source when it comes. So, if you're wondering how it's going to happen, I want you to remember, you already has. Not in your sight, maybe, but in the spiritual realm, where real things are born before they ever hit the ground. And when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. When you can't see the way forward, speak to yourself like one who knows the truth and say, God has already worked it out. Now let me lean in a little closer and tell you something that your spirit may already know, but your mind might be struggling to believing. The struggle ain't stronger than the source. I know the fight feels mighty. I know the weight has a name, a face, and a deadline. I know there are days when getting out of bed feels like a battlefield, but I'm here to tell you, with all the authority of someone who has walked through a few valleys, there is no trouble, no trauma, no trial that can outmatch the God who carries you. Don't let the size of the storm make you forget the scale of your God. Don't you dare measure your strength against the problem. Measure the problem against the one who walks with you through the fire and doesn't flinch. You see, the wind may blow and the rain may fall, but heaven does not tremble. The source, your source, is not intimidated by your situation. You might be shaken, but he is not moved. Sometimes we get so close to our pain that we forget our position. We forget that we were never meant to fight alone. The same power that raised mountains and split seas and healed broken bodies is the same power that lives in you. And yet we walk around talking about, I don't know if I can make it. Of course you can. Because it ain't just you. It's the God within you. The strength that doesn't break under pressure. The source doesn't get tired. The source doesn't second guess. The source doesn't retreat. But the world will try to convince you otherwise. Life will whisper that maybe this time it's too much. Maybe this problem is different. Maybe this loss is too great. That's when you've got to stand in the truth, plant your feet in it like roots in rich soil, and say, this thing may be bigger than me, but it is not bigger than my God. Let me ask you something. Who told you your struggle had the final word? Who told you that this pain was permanent? Who told you that you had to carry it all on your own? Because I came to tell you that's a lie from the pit. You were never built to carry the weight of the world. You were built to cast your cares, not carry them. You were designed for trust, not torment. So yes, the storm may rage, yes, the road may be long, but God never said you wouldn't face trials. What he said was, "Ooh, be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." Hey, you hear that? Already overcome. That means the struggle is showing up to a battle that's already been decided. That means you're not fighting for victory. You're fighting ye from victory. There's a difference. I don't want you to think that faith is the absence of fear. No, faith is the choice to trust anyway, to move anyway, to believe anyway, and that choice, that's your weapon, that's your power. Because when you look your fear in the eye and say, you don't get to define me, you remind every force working against you who you belong to. It's not about being fearless. It's about knowing that the fear can howl and the darkness can threaten, but your source is still stronger. He is the one who holds galaxies between his fingers, the one who names every star, the one who spoke light into the void and made a world from nothing. You think he can't handle your situation. You think he's overwhelmed by your rent being due, your diagnosis, your broken heart. Beloved, if the winds obey his voice, what makes you think your life is out of control? I've lived long enough to know that pain is real, but so is power, that wounds bleed, but healing comes, that nights are long, but joy still rises with the sun, and through it all the source remains, not weakened, wary, not worried. So if you're in the middle of a storm tonight, I want you to remember this: your struggle might be loud, but your source is louder. And while your knees may buckle, while your voice may tremble, while your tears may fall, your foundation holds. Because the struggle ain't stronger than the source. Now let's talk about something that sits heavy in the hearts of many waiting. That space between the prayer and the promise, between the cry and the comfort. Oh yes, I know that space. It can feel like a wilderness where hope gets quiet and time gets loud. You've been sowing, trusting, holding on with the grip of your last ounce of strength. And yet there's no sign, no door swinging open, no answer coming down the road. But hear me when I say this: who delayed does not mean denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. We confuse silence with absence, and we confuse God's timing with our own impatience. But time, real time, holy time, is not measured by our clocks. It is measured by purpose. And purpose has a rhythm that doesn't always dance to our calendar. Some of you are discouraged because you've been asking, Lord, where are you? But let me tell you, he's not late. He's not stalled. He's preparing the blessing so it won't break you when it gets to you. See, some things we ask for aren't denied. They're just not ready. Or better yet, we were not ready. You want the position, but you need the preparation. You want the marriage, but God is still healing the parts of you that love conditionally. You want the platform, but he's still working on your posture. Because God isn't in the business of giving you what will crush you. He gives in fullness, not fragments. And sometimes that means you've got to wait. Now, I know what waiting does to the heart. It tempts you to doubt yourself. It whispers, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe they were right about you. Maybe God changed his mind. But those are lies spoken in the dark by fear that has no authority. I want you to understand that divine delay is not divine punishment. It's divine protection. God sees around corners. He knows what's up the road that you can't see from where you are. You ever been on a plane that's about to land but can't touch down yet? You circle the runway. The passengers start to fidget. The air feels tight. Folks start checking their watches, sighing under their breath. But the pilot, the one with the control, he's calm. He says, "We've been placed in a holding pattern." Why? Because conditions on the ground aren't safe yet. That's what God does. He puts you in a holding pattern to keep you from crashing. You think you're being overlooked, but really, you're being protected. And you've got to resist the urge to force things that aren't yet ripe. Because rushed blessings spoil. They rot. You don't want what's premature. You want what is perfectly timed. And what God has for you is not just about timing. It's about testimony. It's about the lesson that comes from the wait. You see, delay is the classroom of faith. It teaches you how to trust when nothing makes sense. It teaches you how to stand when your legs want to run. It teaches you how to worship not just for the outcome, but for the one who holds the outcome in his hand. Sometimes you won't understand what God is doing until long after he's done it. And that's all right. He's not waiting on your understanding. He's asking for your trust. The Bible says, "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." That means waiting isn't weakness. Waiting is warfare. You've got to fight to keep your mind steady. You've got to fight to protect your hope. You've got to fight to not give up when everything inside you wants to quit. But when the moment finally comes, when the answer breaks through the silence, when the door swings wide, when the yes shows up where there's been nothing but no's, then you'll see it. You'll look back on the nights you cried, the days you doubted, and you'll see God's fingerprints all over the timeline. You'll say, well, that's why it took so long. And you'll realize he was never ignoring you. He was building something better than what you prayed for. So don't despise the wait. Don't curse the stillness, because in the silence, he's working. In the delay, he's designing. And in the pause, he's preparing not just the blessing, but you. Delay does not mean Daniel. Sometimes we look at our lives and we only see the wreckage. We see the moments that broke us, the seasons that drained us, the people who walked away and never looked back. And it's easy to believe that those things left us with nothing but damage, that what tried to break us succeeded in leaving us weaker, less whole, less worthy. But I came to remind you of a deeper truth. What tried to break you helped build you. You may not feel like it when you're crying in your car, when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., when you're holding yourself together in rooms where nobody sees your pain. But let me tell you, every crack in your soul is evidence of survival. Every scar is a chapter written in the ink of endurance. Pain did not come to stay, it came to shape. And it may not have asked permission, but it didn't come without purpose. You see, the lie we often believe is that struggle strips us, that hard times leave us hollow. But what if, just what if, they left you stronger than before? What if the pain wasn't the end of you, but the becoming of you? What if the very thing you thought would ruin your life was the thing God used to reveal who you really are? Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet carry silent battles behind their smiles. They have wept in secret, yet they still rise. Why? Because they understood something. They understood that what breaks you down on the outside can build you up on the inside, if you let it. They didn't let bitterness become their identity. They let brokenness become the blueprint for something sacred. Every tear you cried watered your roots. Every disappointment drove your character deeper into the soil of resilience. Every betrayal taught you how to recognize truth. It's not wasted. None of it. The confusion, the anger, the heartbreak, they are all ingredients in the recipe of who you are becoming. You might not like the process, but baby, you're going to love the outcome. Don't you know that diamonds are made under pressure? That gold is refined by fire. That olive oil doesn't come forth until the fruit is crushed. You have been pressed, yes. You have been pushed. But what is coming out of you now is power, strength, clarity, wisdom, compassion. You didn't just survive the pain. You learned from it. And learning from it means it didn't win. Sometimes the enemy meant to destroy you. But God rerouted that pain into purpose. That heartbreak that was supposed to leave you bitter, God turned it into empathy. That failure that tried to convince you you'd never rise again, God used it to awaken your creativity. That sickness, that loss, that door that slammed in your face, it all became training ground. Let me tell you what pain does. It clears the room. It removes the unnecessary. It reveals who's really there for you. It sharpens your ear to God's voice because when the noise of the world quiets down, you finally start listening to the whisper that was there all along. Oh, you are more than this moment. You were made for more than this pain. You are not a product of what happened to you. You are a product of how you rose from it. You've got to stop cursing the process and start thanking God that you didn't lose your mind, that you didn't stop breathing, that you didn't give up when it would have been easy to lay down and let life have its way. You got up. You stood tall. Maybe your knees were shaking, but you stood. And if you're still in it, if you're still in the thick of the fire, I want to tell you this: the fire is not meant to consume you. It's meant to refine you. It's not to destroy. It's to distinguish you, to pull out the purest parts of you that couldn't forth without the flame. So don't be ashamed of what you've been through. Don't hide your wounds. Those wounds are where the light shines through. Those wounds are how others know healing is possible. There is somebody who will see your story and believe that they too can survive. So let them talk. Let the past speak. Let the tears fall if they must. But do not forget this truth. What tried to break you helped build you. There's something holy about hindsight. Looking back and realizing that the places where you thought you were abandoned, you were actually being anchored. That the moments where you thought all was lost, you were actually being lifted. Sometimes it takes distance to see clearly, and when you look back on the journey, you start to notice what you missed in the middle of the messy. God's hand was on it the entire time. He was guiding you through the silence. He was keeping you when you didn't know how you were making it. He was blocking things you thought you wanted because he knew what you needed. You see, when you're walking through pain, it's hard to recognize providence. But when you get to the other side, when you stand in a place you once prayed for, you start to understand that none of it was random. It all had rhythm. It all had order. And most of all, it all had Boo Grace wrapped inside it. Some of you are sitting here today and you don't even realize you are the evidence. You are the testimony. You are the proof that grace didn't miss you. You didn't get here by chance. You didn't survive by accident. You didn't stumble into healing, into peace, into clarity. God was there, strategically, silently, faithfully, threading his goodness through your story. You remember those nights when you thought you wouldn't make it. You did. You're still here. You remember those people who said you'd never get back up. Look at you standing tall. You remember how you thought the pain would bury you. But here you are, breathing deeper, walking wiser, loving harder. And it wasn't because the road was easy. It was because grace met you at every turn. And I know it didn't feel like grace when the door closed. It didn't feel like grace when the phone didn't ring. It didn't feel like grace when your plans fell apart in your hands. But what you felt was not the full story. God's grace isn't always soft. Sometimes it comes wrapped in discipline. Sometimes it looks like a detour. Sometimes it feels like a loss. But later you realize it was deliverance. It was rescue in disguise. The thing about grace is, it knows how to go where guilt cannot. It finds you in the places where shame thought it had the final word. It reaches back for you when you don't have the strength to reach forward. That's why you've got to stop thinking your mistakes disqualified you. You've got to stop walking around like grace expired. There is no expiration date on God's mercy. If you're still breathing, grace is still working. Now some of you may be thinking, well, I've messed up too much. I didn't do what I was supposed to. I ran when I should have stayed. Let me stop you right there. God's grace is not earned, it's extended. And it doesn't consult your history to determine your destiny. He knew every choice you'd make, every wrong turn, every heartbreak. And he still called you chosen, still called you worthy, still said, "Oh, my grace is sufficient for you." When I look back over my life, I see divine fingerprints all over moments I once called failures. I see purpose rising from places I thought were pointless. And I see a God who never once left me, even when I didn't call his name. That's grace. Grace says, I've already gone ahead of you and cleared the path. Grace says, you don't have to earn my love. You just have to receive it. Grace says, I'll use even the things that broke you to bless you. You are not standing where you are today because you figured it all out. You are not standing because you always made the right decisions. You are standing because grace carried you, through the confusion, through the chaos, through the seasons where you lost yourself. Grace never lost sight of you. So don't you dare forget how far you've come. Don't minimize your progress just because you're not where you want to be. If you only knew what grace protected you from. If you only knew the traps you never even saw. The prayers answered in silence, the battles fought on your behalf. You'd fall to your knees in gratitude. The journey hasn't been perfect, but grace has been present. Every step, every stumble, every comeback. It was grace that held you together when everything else was falling apart. God's hand was on it the entire time. Now let me leave you with this. There comes a moment in every journey when you have to stop rehearsing what hurt you and start releasing what's holding you. That's right. You've cried the tears, you've lived through the heartbreak, you've buried the dreams that didn't come to pass. But there is a point where you have to make a decision. Not to forget, but to release. Not to erase what happened, but to stop letting it write the next chapter. Because at some point, you've got to say enough. I'm not dragging this weight another step. Freedom doesn't always come in the form of rescue. Sometimes it comes in the form of release. It's not that God is going to come and snatch it out of your hand. You've got to be willing to let it go. That bitterness, that fear, that shame, that unforgiveness that has you locked in the prison of your own pain. You've got to release it. Not because they apologized. Not because it made sense. Not even because you understand it all. But because your peace is worth more than your pride. Some of us are stuck because we've learned how to live in chains. We've built routines around our resentment. We've found comfort in dysfunction because it's familiar. But God didn't call you to be comfortable. He called you to be free. And freedom means you've got to lay some things down. You've got to stop letting your past interrupt your future. You've got to stop waiting for closure from people who were never capable of giving it. You don't need their permission to move on. You don't need their blessing to heal. You need your own yes. You need to say yes to healing, yes to growth, yes to joy that doesn't apologize for showing up after sorrow. And I know letting go is hard. It's not a switch. It's a process. Sometimes you let go a little at a time. Sometimes you release it only to pick it back up the next morning. But don't you beat yourself up for being human. Just keep choosing release. Keep choosing to unclench your fists, to exhale. To trust that what's ahead of you doesn't need the baggage from behind you. Some of you are tired, not because of what's in front of you, but because of what you're still carrying from years ago. The memory still plays like it happened yesterday. The rejection still echoes. The disappointment still drips like a slow leak in your spirit. But you don't have to keep living under that cloud. You are allowed to step into the sunlight. You are allowed to be whole. You are allowed to rebuild with both hands open, no longer holding on to what broke you. And please understand, release is not weakness. It's strength. It takes strength to forgive. It takes strength to rise when you've been knocked down. It takes strength to unclench your heart from the grief that tried to choke your joy. But you were made for this kind of strength. Not the loud, flashy kind, but the quiet, grounded kind. The kind that knows how to kneel before God and say, I don't understand it all, but I trust you enough to let it go. Because here's what's true. What's ahead of you is too big to bring the weight of the past with you. There's new territory calling your name. New peace, new purpose, new connections, new levels of joy and clarity. But those doors won't open with hands full of yesterday's rubble. You've got to make room. You've got to create space. And the only way to do that is to release. So don't let the pain get the final word. Don't let your mistakes become your identity. You are more than what happened. You are more than who left. You are more than the trauma. You are more than the silence. You are more than the moment that tried to define you. You are free. And not just free to survive, but free to thrive. Free to dance again. Free to trust again. Free to dream with your whole heart. Not just the pieces you were willing to spare. Because here's what I need you to know, the weight you've been carrying isn't yours anymore. It served its purpose. It taught its lesson. And now it's time to release it. You can't walk in what God has already worked out if you're still holding on to what He already freed you from.